Practice number 1 is in the books for Boston College football, and we already have answers to questions we have about this football team.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, and I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for the news, the scoops, the details on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. We are a daily Boston College podcast available 5 days a week on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, completely free. And to all my everydayers, thank you so much for those of you who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. On today's show, camp is open. We are now getting into the 2025 football season. There's a lot to talk about. 3 names shine during camp that I noticed, and some others that I would love to talk about as well. We're going to get into the QB debate, what you guys always want to talk about. But let's get into the camp itself. Now, on Wednesday, outside the Fish Fieldhouse, BC opened their first camp, and they are efficient as ever. 8:45 is when they start. They were on the field at 8:40 going, because that's what Bill O'Brien is about, and he is discipline, and that's what that team was all about today. Now, a lot of the new names, well, all the new names were there. You saw your Chris Marables and Jason Hewlett's and, Makai Byerson, all these new names that you brought in, and along with your freshmen, they're all there. You have new number changes. Turbo Richards now number 2, which blew my mind, but I love it. And we'll talk about him in a little bit. And you just had everything going. Now, the way things work over the summer, the captains, and they can do their own workouts and whatnot without the staff there, or they can't be run by the staff. So it's not like this team is just starting now. And clearly, if you watch them, if they were just starting now, there's some magicians out there, because they looked much more crisp than you would expect for day 1 practice. But they're out there. They're practicing. It is hot as Dickens out there. I mean, I'm just watching. I'm in the shade, and I'm getting hot watching these guys. It's like 90 degrees out. It's outside the Fish Fieldhouse. They're doing 7v7s. They're doing positional drills. You got some special teams going on. So let's get into some of the things that stood out. Let's get into the special teams first, because Bill O'Brien in his post press conference of the first practice talked about how, I think he said, awful or terrible special teams was last year, or punting. And I have to say, let me paint you a picture here. I'm watching the 7v7 stuff, and there's a second practice field. I think that's 70 or 60 yards long. It's not a full practice field, a little further off. That's a lot of times where the third team, 14 players might be practicing, but there's special teams over there. So I'm watching Dylan Lonigan and Grayson James and this new quarterback Enzo something from Monmouth. They're all playing. And I look over, and I just hear a boom. And I look over, and it's Andy Quinn with the ball just completely, again, blasting off his foot. And I was like, whoa, he's doing it outside now. So that caught my attention, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to go watch that practice field, because I want to see what he's doing. And we got to see a bit of that. There was also some freshmen that made some plays. We saw Israel Oladapopu make a sack. We saw Griffin Collins. I don't know if he actually would have got a sack, but it blew up the play. Sometimes it's hard to especially when they're in shells, they're actually not making contact. They blow a play dead. He, I think, would have had a sack. I saw Bo McCormick have a nice run. He was playing on special teams as well. I want to make sure that when we're talking about this, it's important to note that many of these guys make plays, but it may not be against the starters. It may be just, they're freshmen. They're playing. They're getting their they're learning their way onto the field. So I'm not saying these guys are going to jump up and get starting spots. I'm just saying they made some plays. Okay. We also saw some good play, some positional changes as well. The 2 big surprises for me. Here were the 2 big surprises. Datrell Jones, Day Jones, is no longer a running back. He is now a wide receiver. 5'9" wide receiver now out of Catholic Memorial. This is interesting to me because I just never saw him as, busting into that top group to start. So I just, when they, moved him over, I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense because it just didn't seem like he was ever going to find a spot. And so he's there. That was one change. The other big change that we saw was that Bryce Lewis is going from tight end, and now he's in his dad's room, the defensive room. He's going to be a defensive lineman. Now, this one is not, Bryce Lewis is a true freshman. This one should not be a huge surprise for a couple reasons. One, I just told you, because he's his dad's son, and he would be playing for his dad on the defensive line. The second one is, and I still can't believe this, BC brought in 4 tight ends last year. Between Kalen Chudzinski, DJ Johnson, Stevie Amar, and Bryce Lewis, there was 4 of them there. You don't need 4 tight ends in one class. The final piece that made it clear that he would be the one that would move is that Bryce Lewis played defense in high school. And some of these other guys might have as well, but I honestly believe Lewis was recruited by some schools as a defensive lineman. So now you have him as a defensive lineman, and this interests me. Bryce Lewis as a defensive lineman interests me because, yeah, it would be nice to have a 6'6" tight end, but think about this. What about having a 6'6" edge rusher? We talked about Mackay Brown from Connecticut, who's 6'7". You now have one that's 6'6", and who has played that position. I love big guys, and he's obviously going to have a big frame to go with it. So this was another interesting change. Now, you also saw things that maybe you already knew, like Von Pemberton's going to stick with the linebackers, and Nate Johnson's going to the defensive backs. That one's been kind of buzzed around for a while. So there was some position changes. But everything, it felt like home again watching this practice because you saw Bill O'Brien out there. He's got the same energy that he saw all last year. Not taking any mistake for granted and making sure everyone knew it when there was mistakes, but also praising them when things were going right. It didn't feel to me like a first practice. It really felt like this team has been together for a little while, and that's good. They've worked with Coach Fitz. They've worked out with him. They've gotten themselves into working shape, and so that was great to see. Now the offensive line, it's first practice. Anyone who's here and asking me about how is the tackling, how is the defense, other than maybe a sack here or there, and there's a few interceptions that were made, it's hard to gauge because they're still in shells. They're not tackling. Same thing with the offensive line. Yeah, they were being physical out there. Jude Bowery, Logan Taylor, and Dwayne Alec are certainly going to be the leaders on that offensive line. Jude Bowery said it himself today. But how are they going to do it in the run block? I don't know. It was the first practice. It's hard to tell. But you know what? I don't even care. I'm so glad that they were back out there. And it was refreshing to see. It was refreshing to see them out there. This is the first camp that, Bill O'Brien is the first coach that has had really open camps since I think Steve Addazio had a little bit of it. But Hafley had closed camps. He just didn't do it. Having it completely open is nice. And we got to see Grayson James, and we got to see Dylan Lonigan. And in our second segment, I'm going to explain to you what I saw from Grayson James and Dylan Lonigan and where things are at. Do we have a better idea of where things are going? I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a moment. When I'm on my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin, but getting enough fluids into my day is always easy. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drink. I was just at practice today. It was 90 degrees out, hot. I had my thermos, not thermos, but like a bottle of water, and I put my Drip Drop. I had orange in there. It tastes great. It kept me hydrated as I was out there for a couple hours watching practice. Yeah, I'm not doing what the players are doing, but I'm keeping myself hydrated out there. And it was delicious. I love the taste of it. Drip Drop tastes great. So right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On College listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On College. That's dripdrop.com, promo code Locked On College for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. This is Locked On Boston College, your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And to my everydayers out there, thank you all. And I had a few more shout out in my mentions. Thank you. And more of you as the season gets closer, I'm sure more of you are going to come back. Go back and listen to some of those older episodes. There's stuff out there that as you're getting ready for the season and the Fordham starter, you want to know more about this team. I've got it all covered. Just go back into the archives, pick one out, just listen, just listen to it. I think you'll enjoy it. Now, the story of the summer again. What's the story of the summer? Hey, everydayers, what is it? It's Dylan Lonigan versus Grayson James. We've beaten this story to death, but it's no longer talking about it. It's now into crunch time. We're now into the summer months, and we're getting closer to a decision. Now, on Wednesday, both quarterbacks played. Shaker Rising, interesting injury update, did not play. He was in a boot. Bill O'Brien said he had an injury. He did not practice. We don't know what the injury is or how long he's going to be out, but he's out. And I think it's Enzo Anjora is now the third string quarterback, or the quarterback behind those other two guys. He's a transfer from Monmouth. He looks like a walk-on. Nothing wrong with that, but that's what he looks like. So, that's where you're at with that. Now, everyone wants to know, how did they both look? And I'm going to say it was first practice. They're still working out their kinks. Both guys look kind of shaky today, both Lonigan and Grayson James. There were a number of plays both guys left on the field, and I saw James throw a couple of interceptions. I saw Lonigan miss a few open wide receivers. It was kind of just a bit of a messy day for both of them. So, if you have your scorecard out, and I know many of you have it out there, this one was a draw. I don't know who won day one. You asked Bill O'Brien after camp, and he gave better perspective of where this quarterback battle is going, in that he does not have a date he wants to know it by. He just knows it when he knows it. And there's no rush to do it. So you'll probably see reports of, Lonigan hitting Lewis Bond and James hitting Reed Harris. And you guys know what that means. So they're going to be trying everything out. And that's what we saw today, where both guys played with all different wide receivers. They played with all different offensive lines. And again, the defense in practice usually has the edge for that first couple weeks. It takes a little while for that offense to get going. And the plays that it became most evident were the plays and I think they were scripted plays. I think they were trying to hit the deep ball. But they had both Lonigan and James try to throw deep. And neither of these guys were anywhere close. A couple of them were to Reed Harris. They missed him by like 10 yards. And you know what? That's all just, loosening things up, getting used to the way things at practice are working. I'm not blaming. Again, I'm not overreacting. Sometimes our shows can be a little bit hot takey. I am not going to overreact to this. It's one practice. I want to see themes. Will they improve from this? Will they get better? And I think they will. They were getting good passes. If you're going to ask me what wide receivers I saw the most out of, it was tight end Kalen Jasinski had a couple plays. We saw Lewis Bond with a few catches. I saw Reed Harris with a catch. But I think when you're looking at where these two quarterbacks are at, it's still even. And Bill O'Brien said as much after practice. So there is no answer yet. And there doesn't have to be an answer. I honestly think, the first chance I think that they will go to make a decision will be the first scrimmage. That'll be the first data point where maybe after that they will go to somebody. But it could still go on longer than that. Maybe after the first scrimmage, Bill still does not figure it out. Maybe they wait for the second scrimmage. Maybe they wait to the Fordham game. Maybe they wait to the Michigan State game. That's how long this could stretch out. And so I think that's where they're at. I think that's where the two of them are kind of, battling it out. They're trying their best. And I thought Lonigan looked pretty mobile. I thought James his stuff continued to look good in the middle to short stuff, which is what we saw a lot of last year. That's kind of what his bread and butter was. But they made some good throws. They made, there were times where they got sacked, and I think James threw more interceptions, but I think the interception I saw, the one I think it went off his wide receiver's hands. I think that was what I saw. So that's the quarterback debate. Now, I didn't put it up here, but let's talk about punting, because I know that you guys, if you're here at Locked On Boston College, you're an everydayer. We've been talking punting because we cannot have a repeat of 2024 all over again. And so I mentioned that I saw Andy Quinn punt, but once he came over, they did a whole session that was much more punting oriented. And his first punt, again, I had one of those jaw-dropping moments where it sounds like a cannon coming off of his foot. And it went great. He had another one later. But there was a few that weren't great, and he definitely, I could tell was bothering Bill O'Brien. I think probably went over at one point to kind of calm him down, because there was one that went off the side of his foot. There was a bad snap. There's a few little issues there. First practice is the way things are. But I also want to say Seamus Florio looked pretty good too. I thought he had some good punts as well. So, hey, having two punters is better than having no punters. And I think after today, we saw that, at least at this point, both punters can go. And Bill O'Brien said so much at the press conference. He said, we're going to probably see both of these guys this season. So I thought Quinn, Seamus Florio, they look fine. We did not get to see any punt returns, kick returns. Really, I mean, you saw, Bo McCormick back there punt returning, but there was no one going after him. That doesn't really count. And there was no kicking. I don't think I saw Luca Lombardo or Liam Connor out there doing any kicking today. They might have been in the Fishfield house because we were pushed outside, so that might have been the case. But hey, special teams, we talk about it here. This is an important piece. So the biggest issue I thought was that missed snap, and Andy Quinn's a freshman. He's a freshman coming from Ireland. There may be a few moments where he's just not perfect, and he'll get better. He's 6. The other thing is him. He's huge. Are there big guys in Ireland? Because he's like 6'5". I don't think I ever saw a guy that big in Ireland. But hey, that's good for him. He's got a big leg. So that was the other piece that we watched for. Now, in our final segment, I had 3 players I really wanted to talk about. 3 players that really stuck out to me in camp. I'll explain who they are and why they stuck out to me in just a moment. Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I want to tell you about Locked On ACC. It's with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. They are a 5-day-a-week ACC podcast, and you can find them on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, it's practice number 1. I don't want to overreact. I'm kind of doing it a little bit, but I really don't want to overreact. But there were 3 players that caught my attention and really gave me a good glimpse of what they could do. And I'm going to go with the 2 at one position first, and then the third one at the end. Turbo Richard looks very, very much like he's going to be the starting running back. It's hard to see when there's no tackling how a running back is going to do. Yeah, you can dance all over the place, but if you get knocked down the minute they touch you, that doesn't really count. But we know what Turbo can do. He looks dialed in. New number 2 on the team. And they changed his number and KP Price to number 2. He had a couple moments where it's the way he just bounces. Like, he gets the ball and he bounces and shifts, and it just makes him so elusive. And it was very, very clear. Even without tackling, I could tell this was going to be a problem. They had him catch a pass as well. He is built like, I wish I could get the before and after between like freshman year and sophomore year, because right now he is jacked to the gills. Like, he is huge. And so that's good. Like, you got a big physical running back. And one that Alex Broome was saying earlier during camp too, like, he helped him last year when Alex Broome was out because he couldn't play. He helped out Turbo Richard because Turbo was a freshman and he wanted to give him some advice on how to get through the injuries that he was going through and how to take care of his body through a long season. That's what Broome did. The second name is Alex Broome. Alex Broome, who I knew was small, but I didn't get to meet him last year because, again, it was the first camp that was open. And honestly, when Jeff Halfley camp was just going to press conferences, it wasn't a priority to me because I honestly didn't care. Because it was just like, I'm not going to drive 2.5 hours to get press conference quotes. Because that's what it was, back and forth. But to see Alex Broome live, I'm a short dude. I'm going to admit right now, I'm like 5'9". Alex Broome is every bit of 5'6". He joked about it in the press conference. I saw him. I was like, whoa. Again, he's 5'6", but also built like a brick house. But to watch him, it is so refreshing to see Alex Broome going at 100%. Because not only is he going at 100%, which we saw at camp, like spring camp, he was doing that at spring camp too. He's playing at a different speed than I remember him ever playing under Jeff Halfley. And at that size, it strikes me like Maurice Jones-Drew. That's who he reminds me of right now. Maurice Jones-Drew was like 5'7" too. What do they call him? Muscle hamster or something like that. Alex Broome is very much like that. Like, he is huge. And he, again, it's hard to gauge a running game in practice, but he looked good. He looked explosive. He made some big plays. I loved what I saw out of him. He also was very active in the pass game. He's going to be a part of this offense. How he works the snaps compared to what Turbo does, I'm really interested to see how O'Brien envisions that. Will Alex Broome be more like a Trayshawn Ward where he's, just getting, third down back and some pass plays? Or will he be more of an every down back? I'm not that sure. Jordan McDonald also had a few good runs too. I'm not saying he had anything poor in his practice. He looked good too. And then finally, and this was my MVP of camp number 1, Syer Torrance. Now, Syer Torrance a couple years ago was one of the top recruits BC landed. And you watch his film, and this kid was a dog. Like, this guy was everywhere. He had 10 offensive touchdowns. I think he had like 10 sacks and 5. Like, he had some absurd numbers. Only a 3-star, though. A kid that I think they flipped. I think he's the one they flipped from Syracuse, another one. And last year, we didn't really get to see much of him, but we started to see glimpses of him during spring camp as he started up as the slot corner. And he is a very good pass protector. And this is something that's just, there's all sorts of things, like, as I just said, rushing game, you can't tell, and some blocking schemes, you really can't tell in the beginning of practice. Good coverage, you can always tell what good coverage looks like. And he had good coverage. Like, he had at least 2 pass breakups where he was on a wide receiver like glue and just batted the ball away. He did it at least twice. So, and Bill O'Brien again shouted him out after practice and was like, this is a guy that's had a great summer. He looked clear to me. So I get excited about him because you have Cameron Martinez. And Cameron Martinez is a veteran corner who's probably going to play some slot. But you also have Syer Torrance, who is he's the future of that position, I think. How long do you wait on that? Do you play him right away? Or do you have to have Cam play more? I don't know. Cameron Martinez had his moments last year. I mean, again, that Virginia Tech game, he was insane. But he also struggled a little bit. I don't know if Syer Torrance is going to struggle like that. He's very, very good. And he's a name you're going to want to watch for. Like, we're going to be talking about KP Price and Carter Davis and Omar Thornton. The secondary itself in this practice really dominated. That whole group, from Davis to Price, they looked strong. And that's going to be, I think, a theme that we're going to be getting into as the summer goes along. But Syer Torrance was the name that popped for me today. I thought he looked really good. On tomorrow's show, more practice. I won't be there tomorrow. Mike Sidley, who we've had on the show, will be there. but I'll get some details from him. I will talk about more themes that are coming up. We'll get into everything, including maybe some hockey talk. James Higgins is coming back. I think you're going to want to talk about that. Follow me along with me at Twitter at AJBlack247. You can check me out on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you get your social media. I am there, including TikTok. We're almost up to 900 followers on TikTok, which is crazy because almost 600 followers on TikTok. I mean, I'm just putting up videos, and we have some fresh ones on there too if you have not seen them with my takeaways and things like that. So check out TikTok. That's Locked On BC, and I hope to see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.